Super Rugby round 7, the Saturday games, the 4 of them. A pretty good weekend, or at least the Saturday and the Friday to be fair, for the away teams. But one team managed to hold at home, and that were my Blues. We will start with that one. The Blues getting a bonus point win over the Stormers. A bonus point by as minimal a margin you can do it. 3 tries to none. You need to get 3 tries more than your opponent. So the Blues got exactly that, 3 tries. Didn't concede any, just the 3 penalties they conceded to the Stormers. So a relatively tight game for much of the match, and it was kind of only towards the end that the Blues made certain of it. So yeah, like I said, I was at this game. It was a pretty good atmosphere. There seemed to be quite a few Stormers fans. Every time the Stormers would get some success, they would get certainly a fair bit of support from the crowd. I don't think it was quite the same crowd as the week before against the Highlanders, but yeah, the Blues have now won 3 games in a row, which I'm not used to. It's been a long time since the Blues have done anything like that. It's a win over an Aussie conference team, a New Zealand conference team, and a South African conference team, so there doesn't seem to be any pattern. But yeah, I'm just not sure what to think, because I'm still not convinced the Blues are the real deal. They still seem to have their flaws, but hey, I mean, if they're winning, I certainly can't be complaining sitting here as a Blues fan when sometimes 3 wins in a season seem more likely than 3 wins in 3 games. So yeah, they certainly did good enough to get that. I know there was a little incident at the start of the game when Nanai seemed to either hit or elbow Dylan Lades. Some guys pointed that out to me on Twitter. I haven't actually seen anything talked about it. I mean, the ref was right there. I know some people say that should have been a red card. I don't like red cards early on in games, even if it's not my team. It tends to ruin the fixture, but I mean, if you hit a guy in the face, you tend to get red carded. But yeah, they didn't seem to do anything. I only saw it very briefly, so not sure what the deal is with that. Not to say the Blues didn't get a red card. They did finish the game with a red card to the first try scorer, Talea, who took out Lades, who was going for a high ball. He managed to kind of pull out of his run too late, and he fumbled to the ground. So yeah, just poor. But at that moment, the Blues weren't that far ahead, so they hadn't scored that final try. It was about 70 minutes that they gave away that red card. There was still enough time for the Stormers to come back and win. I think the Blues were 8 points ahead. They could have easily thrown it away, but this Blues side doubled down and managed to get a win. Stormers, that's 2 losses in a row on the road. It's kind of what we expect, but for large periods it was close, like last week, but I'm sure against the Blues they would have liked to target this one as perhaps a win, or at least a bonus point loss. They get neither, so yeah, there was a red card. Another try to Rico Ioane, so he's in top form, but he's not going to be playing next week because they have to rest him as his All Blacks commitments, and Talea, who's the other winger, got red carded, so how the Blues back 3 lines up next week could be interesting. I guess Caleb Clark or perhaps Matt Duffy if he's back. Maybe Michael Collins will be back there. We'll wait and see. Otsede Black got the other try for the Blues. So Sonny Bill, Nanu, the old boys seem to do alright. For the Stormers, it wasn't ideal. I mean, Dan Duplessis went off pretty early, injured, and I think Malherbe went off before half-time, so it didn't seem to be ideal in that regard. It was 10-6 at half-time. 24-9 at full time, so yep, the Blues good enough. But I mean, you look at some of the stats: 36% possession, 33% territory for the Blues, but they still managed to get 544 run meters to 464 for the Stormers. So the Blues, when they did have the ball, well, were cutting things up. You look at that Stormers tackle rate of 72%; it's not good. Whereas the Blues have actually shored things up a bit, 86, which is more than what they traditionally have had. So yep, Leon McDonald must be doing something right over there. Every Blues game I'm going to, I'm picking up these Blues flags. So if anyone has a flag of a team, which I don't have, which is most of them, Stormers, Lions, Jaguares, do they even give flags at Jaguares games? Sunwolves, Waratahs, Brumbies, I think maybe I got a Brumbies one on the way, likewise Reds. If you got any flags, Chiefs, Crusaders, Highlanders. If you have a flag and would like to exchange it for a Blues flag, I got heaps of these things at home. My wife's telling me stop getting flags. Never. But yeah, Blues have got the Waratahs at home next week. Now the Blues could ultimately go ahead and lose that one because I know that the Waratahs just lost to the Sunwolves, so it would make sense for the Blues to lose to them. But hey, I'm not going to get too worried about that one next. The Stormers are away to the Reds, so a chance for them to kind of get some payback. Speaking of the Reds, they have gone down to the Rebels. 13 points for the Reds, 32 for the Rebels. I didn't end up seeing this game. This game started while I was still coming home from the Blues game. They didn't have it on the radio, which was pretty annoying. They had the league on. Neither had New Zealand team. I suppose that's why they didn't really think about what to put on the radio. So, yeah, I saw a bit of the first half, and it was still 6-all. I mean, it was 6-all. There weren't any tries for about 38 minutes. So it seemed to be a bit of a back and forth thing. But yeah, I didn't see much of the game. I have watched a bit of highlights. It looks like the Rebels kind of blew things away in the second half. Because, yeah, halftime it was 11 points to 6. Maddox went in with a Cooper cross kick just before halftime, which he did really well to get above Stewart and catch. And then second half it was just the Rebels, Rangi from a maul, Maddox again from a loose ball. Cooper helped them out with that one too. And the Rebels, so the Reds didn't get their first try until the 74th or 75th minute through Taniela Tupou from about a metre out. So I suppose in recent weeks we've seen the Reds kind of firing a bit, but maybe they didn't fire too many shots this week. I don't know. You guys have seen the game in full. Will have to let me know how they went. Leota hit the last word for the Rebels, getting another 1 metre try to make it 32 points to 13. So a bonus point win for the Rebels. Can't ask for much more against the conference rival. So as the Rebels were on a downward step and the Reds were starting to get up, they've reversed places again. So the Rebels have had a pretty good week with the Waratahs and now the Reds losing. The Sunwolves did get a win, but they are still just kind of trying to get back into things. So the Rebels have put them in a good position to head off in the lead of that Aussie conference. And yeah, the Cooper and Guinea thing still seems to just be going on. So Reds only had 37% possession, 37% territory, 42% possession. So yeah, they seem to be on the back foot a bit, but their run meters were fine. And interestingly for the Reds, despite conceding 32 points, their tackling percent was 94, which in Super Rugby is again almost unheard of. It's usually like 75 to 85. 86 is kind of really good, and then the Reds were at 94. So I guess when they were beaten, they were well beaten, but for large periods they were tackling pretty well. So yeah. The Reds have got the Stormers at home, like I said, so a good chance for both those sides to bounce back. The Rebels really have a chance to keep going forward because they are hosting the Sunwolves in Melbourne. So, I mean, the Sunwolves aren't going to be a pushover. It seems like that Aussie conference, most of the teams are kind of 2 steps forward, 1 step back, so it's kind of hard to know what's going to happen with that. The next one, the Sharks and the Bulls, was on overnight for me, so I didn't watch it live, but when this one was on at about 10:40 here in New Zealand, I put it on another screen, so I had both these games going at the same time. I was focusing on this one a bit more because it was live, but I did keep an eye on the Sharks and Bulls game, so I didn't watch it kind of minute for minute, but I've seen all the plays. A lot of penalties. I mean, you can see from the scores, Dan Dupree got one for the Sharks and Jesse Creel got one for the Bulls. That was all the try scoring. All the rest from kicks. There was a drop goal shot as well, but that got missed and ended up being a penalty anyway. So yeah, another one that was kind of back and forth. The lead changed at least a few times. Bulls kicked the penalty, Sharks evened it up, Sharks missed the penalty, Bulls kicked the penalty. That was half time, 6 points to 3 to the Bulls. Dupree got his try, 8-6, they missed the conversion. Bulls got their try, 13 points to 8. Odendal to Creel was the try, a nice little move from the back of a scrum, was actually worked pretty well. Did I not put Esterhazen's try? Esterhazen got a try as well. Didn't write it on the noteboard on the board there. So that made it 16 all, and it was, yeah, right at the last couple of minutes the Bulls got a scrum penalty and just managed to knock it over. So yeah, it was definitely a good effort from the Bulls to sneak away with that, because it looked like it was going to be a draw for all money. I suppose, though, the main talking point for this game is the two hookers, Scott Berger and Aka van der Merwe, really going at it and both getting red carded. Now, we see handbags plenty in rugby, but nobody does anything. They usually grab each other by the collar and just start saying sweet nothings to each other. But no, these guys went full bore. I actually caught it because there's something was going on in the Chiefs and Jaguares game that wasn't that interesting. So I had my eyes on that Sharks game, and I just saw Aka like throw a punch, and it looked like it hit. So I was suddenly fixated on that game. Yeah, they both clocked each other with a few. I'm not sure if there's a bit of that tension from Springboks places as well. But I mean, it's interesting because Sia Kolisi mentioned on New Zealand TV the other day just how intense the South African derby matches are, because the guys like Jeff Wilson and whatnot who were interviewing him mentioned how just intense the New Zealand ones are. Same feeling over in South Africa, and evident in those feelings between those guys. So yeah, both red carded, so finished with 14 men. The main notes I took from this game was it seemed like the Sharks had a lot of ball and a lot of chances to score, but kept stuffing it up. So especially in that first half, they had a try TMO'd because the ball barely hit the line. They turned down shots and then went for a try. They got a penalty and then missed that penalty. Failed to score with knock-ons and whatnot. So it doesn't seem to have been the prettiest game from the moments that I was watching it, but in terms of the result, it was a kind of direct contest between these two teams. Who was gonna step forward in the South African Conference. This week it's the Bulls. Who knows? Because both these teams are still kind of in that inconsistent category. The Sharks have got a chance against the Lions next week away, so they'll have to pick up because that wasn't the best result. And the Bulls host the Jaguares, so the Bulls will definitely be looking at that as a chance to take another step ahead in that South African Conference. But we can't forget about the Lions, because just because they're on a bye, it doesn't mean they're gone out of the picture. So yeah, 16-19, close game, a couple of lead changes, a big fight, which was actually a fight and not just words for a change. And I'm sure both those guys will be suspended for a couple of weeks at least. The last one is the Chiefs and the Jaguares. The Chiefs just managed to sneak this one. 30 points to 27 over the Jaguares. The Chiefs went out to a pretty decent lead. Well, the Jaguares opened the scoring with a penalty. Chiefs hit back with the penalty. Jaguares took it again with a penalty. But yeah, then the Chiefs decided to not go for penalties anymore, and they started going for tries. They scored the first one through Damian McKenzie. Then they had another one from Tumua Manu, and that was kind of a little chip that hit the post and bounced back for him, so it really set up for him perfectly. 17 points to 6, and then Kremer got a yellow card on 36 minutes. The Jaguares were just making all kinds of errors in that first half, giving away all kinds of penalties, and it looked like they were going to get done because they were well behind and a man down. The Chiefs kicked the penalty early on in the second half. It was 20 points to 6. The yellow card finished 3-0 to the Chiefs. But then something about the Jaguares managed to wake up, and Tukulek got one heck of a try from a cross kick in the in-goal area in that Jaguares home ground is really small. Tukulek managed to gather it and dot it down very well. He got above Damian McKenzie. So yeah, that made it 13 points to 20. Very good conversion kick from Bonija as well. And then 55 minutes, Matera got his try, made it 20 points apiece. Chiefs get a penalty. Orlando gets his try on 73 minutes, so it looks like the Jaguares are perhaps going to sneak it. And then the Chiefs go down the other end. They get a 5-meter scrum when the Jaguares are unable to clear because they get charged down. And from that 5-meter scrum, Tahuri Orangi goes in for a try. DMAC kicks the conversion. 30 points to 27. Game done. Jaguares get a losing bonus point, but the Chiefs, that's 2 wins in a row. So kind of good effort from them, because the start of the season's been pretty bad and they couldn't really afford to drop another game. So for them to get a win over in Argentina works pretty well. Jaguares season's looking to be hanging by a thread though, because it's another loss for them and another trip to South Africa next week, so they don't traditionally do well there. It could pretty bad, like I said earlier, they're playing the Bulls. The Chiefs are on the bye next week, which probably works out pretty well because they've just gone to New Zealand, to South Africa, to Argentina, so they could probably use a rest. It's one of those few times that Sanzar has planned that schedule pretty well. The Jaguares tried the maul a wee bit, didn't get huge results, but a couple of times they did manage to win some penalties, which was good. I noticed the Chiefs' errors started to creep in as they had that lead in the second half. Like their lineout started to go a bit pot. Tuchel at one point got backed into by Manu and kind of went down like he'd been shot, which was a bit more football, soccer than it was rugby. That's a little bit disappointing, but Manu probably shouldn't have been backing into him. But yeah, Boffelli got an intercept at one point to stop a Chiefs move, which was pretty impressive, and then D-Mac took him out. Overall, it was a pretty entertaining game. Aside from the errors, there were errors from both sides, especially the Jaguares. They'll be disappointed with their discipline and the errors. If they can kind of calm that down, they might actually do a bit better. But yeah, 4 games. I went to one, watched one mostly in full, watched one partially in full, and watched kind of very little of that one, despite the fact that I talked it up as being a must-watch because Brad Thorne and Quade Cooper having that reunion. I guess Coops gets the win on that one. But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts on the games. If you do have flags to send, really, I got Blues flags. The Blues need all the fans they can get. Hey, we're a winning team now, 3 games in a row. Who wouldn't want a Blues flag to hang around? But yeah, you guys let me know your thoughts on the games. I'll talk to you again soon. See you later.